All right, welcome back everyone to day 2 of the $0 Landlord Bootcamp. So this is 100% free, and we are doing this live here in the $0 Landlord server. So today we're going to be talking about acquisition and negotiation as well. All right, so if you don't already know from day 1, what is this? The intention and the objective is to teach a high-density free course that enables anyone to buy multifamily property for $0 down. Right, and this is just giving this away for free. But eventually you might think of me as a business partner, which would be great. But if not, then I want you to be able to go close out a bunch of deals all by yourself. The cost is zero. Just take everything I know. And unlike pretty much everybody, a lot of people that make courses don't actually have any real experience. So I will show you all my experience so you can figure out if I'm a good teacher or not. But at the end of the day, then please let me know what I can do to improve. So just go to the website right here, /feedback. Tell me positive and negative things that I'm doing wrong. Okay, quick stuff about me. So I did a $250K mobile home park for $335K purchase back in September 2023. So I bought that for $0 down. That's 100% seller financed, and I fixed all the management issues in 75 days. With that led to me tripling the net income of the property, and the property actually appraised for $800K 1 year later. So that's a $465K gain over 2x the property. Did it in a year. Did it 100% remote. Never even been to the property. Bought it with 2 partners, so I ended up doing less work. And I have 40% ownership. So it's $186K profit. I do about 1 hour a week on average, which leads to about a $3,500 an hour. So $3,500 an hour is higher than orthodontists, psychiatrists, pilots, nurse anesthetists, CEOs, pediatrician, etc. Right? Top 25 jobs in the U.S. combined, times 1.5. And I've done this multiple times. So this is not, hey, I got a bajillion bucks. This is saying I know how to work efficiently, and I want you to learn how to work efficiently too. If you want, you go on the website there, you'll be able to see my track record on all the other deals I've done. All right, more stuff about me. Made $7 million of stuff for the Air Force. Started doing multifamily investing in August of 2022, and I bought $10 million of stuff in a very short time span. That's 300 units, roughly. And that was pretty much all $0 out of pocket. So I bought 8% of my rentals within a 12 months span, and now I'm estimated to be in the top 200 mobile home park buyers in the U.S., according to that source. You can see more on the website, and I've partnered with 6 people to buy their first rentals for $0, and I've done it for free. I don't charge for consulting or anything else like that. I actually want people to learn, and I want them to be very skilled operators, and I want them to come back and try to partner with me later in the future. 4 out of 6 of those people, by the way, now have over 100 rentals in less than 1 year for no money. That is no catch. Literally, let's just make stuff together. So I want to teach you how to do all this. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. A whole bunch of stuff. Got it down to the minute. So we're going to try to stay on a good timeline here. So please hold questions till the end. And if you're watching this on YouTube, throw it in the chat or in the comments, and I'll make sure to go in and answer that. All right. Financing calculations. So we're going to talk about DTI. So DTI is your monthly expenses divided by your gross monthly income. So that is your debt to income, and that is your monthly expenses divided by income, like I said. That is the percentage of your income that is expenses. So if you recall from day 1, this is kind of like OPEX in a way. This is saying what is your personal OPEX. So it's kind of like, what do you know? Right? Income typically needs to be very stable or 2 years old in order to count with like most lenders out there. So you will have less income that qualifies if you don't have it 2 years old, etc. The DTI limit is typically 55%. Lower the DTI, the better your rate. And car loans and traditional lenders use DTI. So you can reduce your DTI by having a longer term debt. So that'd be like over 30 years instead of 20 years, for instance. Having less debt, you just don't have debt to begin with, or just make more money, right? Which is the whole point of this course, right? So you can ruin your debt to income by running up a huge credit card bill. You can buy way outside your price range. You can have a happy family that costs a lot of money. You can lose money clubbing with somebody, or you can lose money by clubbing somebody and then lose your job. So don't do any of those. Main thing for most people, though, is buying outside the price range. Not clubbing people, hopefully. All right. Now we're going to talk about DSCR, which is what is more prevalent for anything multifamily, right? So DTI is going to be like your traditional single-family home lenders, is based off of DTI. Everybody else doesn't really care about that as much. They care how the property is actually doing. So this is what's so DSCR is your debt service coverage ratio, and that's your NOI, which is your net income per year, divided by your annual debt service, which is just the principal and interest part of your mortgage payment. All right, so there's NOI, there you go. That's your total revenue minus your expenses. That's a quick definition again. If you don't know what that is or you're not familiar with these terms, go back to day 1. I would highly recommend. That is probably one of the best videos of the all 5 as far as like a very quick crash course within 1 hour. All right, DSCR typically needs to be 1.25 or higher to qualify. So that means it needs to cash flow a little bit, basically, right? You have to make more net income than you are paying out in mortgage. And as you know, then your debt service does not count insurance or property tax because that is an expense. So that gets counted on the NOI side of the equation. And your P&I, your principal and interest, is not something you count in your NOI. It has nothing to do with the property specifically. It's something that you, as the buyer, have to deal with. So it does not get counted in there. All right, so your DSCR matters for everything other than a single-family home lender. The entire planet works off of DSCR, except for single-family homes. You'll hear me say that a lot. Everything in the world works the same way except for single-family homes. So if you're buying an $11,000 a year NOI property, assume a bank loan is $7,000 a year, then you would have a $1.57 DSCR ratio, right? So saying I make 57% more net income than I have to pay out on my debt payment, right? So the bank's going to say, cool, you are cash flowing a little bit on this property, so we aren't worried about you going bankrupt. All right, a global DSCR is factoring all loans with an associated property, right? So we talked about what is one loan, but if you look at a global, it factors in every loan. So for the same scenario, if it's an $11,000 a year NOI property and a bank has a loan for $7,000 a year and a seller has a loan for $3,000 a year, then DSCR equals $11,000 divided by your total payment, which is $10,000 a year, which is actually a 1.1. So that would not qualify with most lenders because it's not over 1.25. So you got to make sure to run the numbers so that it actually is going to make sense. Otherwise, you're going to pretty much just be wasting everybody's time. You can increase your DSCR by just making the payment less. That means get a better rate. That means hope and pray for better macroeconomic factors and that we don't have crazy inflation, right? That's an easy way to do it, I guess. You can lower the purchase price, which just means have less loan. And then also you can do a bigger down payment, which would just be less loan, right? Any of those will allow you to increase your DSCR for one particular loan. And then you got to make sure you run it for all loans if you're doing it on a global DSCR, which is what's actually important at the end of the day. Okay. Financing terms. Close out some DMs. All right. So we have down payment. So down payment is how much cash is being put down. You have your loan, which is how much is being borrowed. Loan to value, value of the appraised property, right? So your loan to value is if the bank says that my house is worth $100K, it's because the bank hired an appraiser and the appraiser says my house is worth $100K, right? So then they're going to do a loan to value ratio or percentage rather to figure out what their maximum amount they can lend out on is. It's typically like 70 to 80%. Loan to cost is the cost of the property. The cost in that scenario is the purchase price plus the rehab, right? And if you're getting like really fancy commercial loans, it's like it can mean other things too. They'll just tell you. All right, collateral is what is the loan protected with or secured against. So if I'm buying a house with a mortgage, then the lender holds the house as collateral, and if I don't pay, then they can foreclose on the house and take it, right? If I don't have the loan tied to the house, then they couldn't do that. Technically, it's just an unsecured loan is what that would be called, which is like stuff that American Express does. And they just send the, dogged bounty hunter after you basically for collections in that type of scenario. All right, so for a house, it would be if you don't pay us back, we take the house from you. Hostage situation. Collateral would be the hostages, right? Meet the demands, otherwise I'll kill all the hostages. And for here, for instance, I can hold this entire presentation hostage unless everybody right now goes in the chat and says verbatim, the $0landlord.com bootcamp is awesome, and I will wait. If you don't think I will, then you'll be waiting here a while. So I will wait until I see it. Hey, there it is. Super quick, right? So that's collateral. I'm just leveraging things for my situation because I have something this other person wants or whatever. So for a bank situation, obviously they know that you want money, so they got to do something secured against. All right, financing terms. Yeah, now I got a lot of messages. Everybody's saying that. Cool, thanks guys, appreciate it. All right, financing terms. Amortization. So the period of time payments are calculated over. So an example of this would be a 30-year mortgage is you're going to be using a 30-year amortization, right? So it's 30 years times 12 months equals a 360-month amortization period. So if I have zero interest, just a really quick example, if I have a $360,000 loan and there's 0% interest and I did it over 360 months, then that's literally just $1,000 a month, right? If I start applying an interest rate on that, the monthly payment increases, of course. Okay, interest is going to be your annual rate, and that is annual. It is not monthly. You will see some weird stuff from like loan sharks, but within real estate, everybody's interest rate is going to be on annual. P&I, principal plus interest. IO means interest only. So there's no principal actually being paid out. So I just continue to make the interest payments, and then eventually I still owe the total amount. So a 100K loan at 10% IO, interest only, would be 10K a year, interest to be paid, and then still 100K left over. So what's nice, quick thing by the way, what's nice with IO payments is you can kind of choose your period of time for payback, because if I'm doing principal plus interest versus just interest, I could, in theory, have the exact same outcome if I just choose how much extra I want to pay on the interest only, right? So, the only thing that would prevent that is if there was a prepayment penalty preventing me from paying it early, but otherwise I can custom choose. So this is actually really nice if you're dealing with like a little bit more complicated loans and you don't really know how much money you'll have to pay back every month, but you might have like a bucket of money you can throw in. So IO can be useful. It's just a little simpler to calculate with. Balloon is optional to include. So it's just a cutoff to it. So for the loan, it's not the same as amortization period. So here's a quick example: 10-year amortization, also known as AM sometimes. So 10-year AM and $100 a month payment with 3-year balloon. Then basically their payments look like this: $1,200 a year, $1,200 a year, $1,200 a year, and then all of a sudden the remainder is paid, or it has to be paid at the end of year 3. So like year 4, day 1 is when all $20,000 have to be paid, or all the remainder, that is. All right, lien positions. So a lien is just a debt. That is basically it, right? So the first position lien, for instance, is anything. It could be court judgment, unpaid contractor, etc. And local county liens will usually take precedence over pretty much everything in existence. Bankruptcy can take precedence, maybe. I'm not an exact real estate lawyer, but just the point is, if it's county or bankruptcy, it's going to be way the heck up there, and a lender's going to be very happy to maybe just get their money, or the contractor is going to be way behind them on the stack, right? Because that's a first position lien. It takes precedence over everything else. Okay, lenders is going to be typically a bank lender, so that could also be a seller or a private lender as well. So just a quick thing to note on there: anybody can lend money. You don't need to be licensed unless you're doing it like a very large scale. That's right. So I've personally lend out money, and I'm just a lien holder against it. Now, check your local city and county, and it would be regulated at the state level. Check your state regulations on that, because over a certain dollar amount, it may be required. And again, not a real estate attorney, but it's pretty straightforward stuff. Like you don't need to have like special licensing for this usually. All right, second position lien. It's considered riskier, right? So if a property went bust, then the there's less equity that can actually go to paying off the second guy. For instance, if there's a 100K house and there's a 90K lien on it, and the property goes bust, then the 90K lien guy will take their 90K, and then the second position lien can only get up to 10K. Doesn't matter what the lien amount was. It's like whatever, if their lien was 20K, they could only actually reclaim 10K of that, right? So they can lose out on that. So home equity line of credit is your most common second position lien that you'll see. And seller financing is usually good to utilize in second position if you're not doing it first. This is something that nobody really talks about or does often. So they just do seller financing in first position, and they expect the seller to carry 90% of the debt or something crazy like that. So the seller's not very happy. But if you do a bank in first position and then you do a seller in second position, you can get in for significantly lower down. So that's a very, very powerful strategy we'll talk about here in a second. All right, third position lien. So it is almost always considered to be too risky at third position. It just depends on the equity in the property. So really it's what are you leaning it against? So if I have a $10,000 loan against something that has $5 million of equity, it's like, well, that's actually pretty safe, right? And that's equity remainder after whatever, right? So that's like equity in the property. So third position lien, though, is generally going to be too risky just for what most people are doing. You get into businesses and large commercial stuff, then it's not as big a deal, but I don't think anybody's going to go close a $1 billion thing tomorrow. So typically we're not going to have any lenders in third, just like I said. So if there's anything that's quote unquote the property owner, it's not really a third position lien. So that's apologies on there for putting usually the property owner is the lien holder, because that's not really necessarily true. There's just no lien, but essentially you're third in line to get paid. After first and second, third takes precedence, etc. Right? So that's kind of how that works. Okay, loan recourse. So we have recourse debt, which is where they come after you personally. That's they send Dog the Bounty Hunter after you if you don't pay, and they take the property. So this can bankrupt you. Lose a lot of money, lose the house, makes you very sad. Then you have non-recourse debt. They can only go after the house. There is no Dog the Bounty Hunter. They just instead do foreclosure against the property, Lose the house, lose a little bit of money, not as sad, but not happy, right? Okay. So now we got price versus terms. So would you buy my car for $1 billion? I apologize, I'm hoping this slide is actually finished because I went back a second time and edited this later. So would you buy my car for $1 billion? Right? So what about at 0% interest, 30-year term? Probably not, right? I don't think any car is worth that much. What about $0 down? What about $0 a month? Right? So it can change. Terms impact the quality of the deal. It's not about the price. I would buy it for no money down, no payments. Yeah, that's pretty good. Oh, and what happens when 30 years rolls around? I'm just going to say, whoops, didn't pay it, take the car back. That's fine. Right? So it depends. There's no straight answer on like, is this a good deal? Man, I see that all the time. It's like, it does not matter unless I know the terms on the deal as well. And this is what a lot of people screw up is they go chase the price and they have no idea how to do the actual terms. And that's what we're going to be covering here today is how to do good terms on a deal because it is subjective. Or technically, really, it's more like reliant on it, right? So price can't suck without the right terms. Okay, would you buy a property that's worth $400K for $500,000 instead? All right, what if you had zero down? What if it makes $300K profit in 1 year? Right? So most people don't understand that terms can be more important than price, right? So if I'm buying for zero down on a property that's going to make me $300K profit, then I have an infinite return because I put no money in. Right? So yeah, sure. really it'd be $200K profit, I suppose, right? Because I'm overpaying by 100. Right? So yeah, boo-hoo. I overpaid by $100,000, but it was $0 down. So I can actually get in the door and make the money faster. Right? Same amount of work, so it is technically not as efficient as if I had a pile of cash, but we're not talking about scenarios where you do have tons of piles of cash. It's called $0 landlord. And the nice thing about not needing a pile of cash is you can repeat this infinite amounts of time. I have enough money, I can go do deals. I just choose not to put my own money into deals because I can do it infinite times. I am no longer constrained by capital. Every single time I do a deal, even if I can fund it, then I will just do it with $0 down. Right? And the nice thing is eventually you have too much cash, and you're like, all right, I really don't need cash. And then you can go put it into stuff that's going to make you triple digit returns annually. That's what you really want to be keeping your cash for. Which is why I preach go do it for $0 down every time. So again, terms. Terms can be the most powerful tool in your tool belt at the end of the day. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how you actually get those terms. So we have external funding types, and we already know about syndication. That's kind of funding, right? It's you are funding it, but it's not like a debt necessarily. So this is capital raised in exchange for ownership, and this is what I'm going to talk about a ton. This is what the whole course is all about. So with syndication, that is a general partner does all the work, a limited partner does no work. The general partner puts in no money, the limited partner puts in all the money. So it's a passive equity and a sweat equity guy, right? That's it. And they just come together and they say, let's make it happen. And they have a money baby, right? So which is the property makes a ton of cash and they split it accordingly. But what's nice is the guy that got in for no money now has an infinite return, so they can do it a lot of times. You have your boring ones, which are FHA, conventional, and VA. That's what most people know about. So that's called QM, it's qualified mortgage. And those are government program ones typically, or it's just government comes in and says, okay, cool, you're covered. So they just do them according to government guidelines and it's cookie cutter. Then you have something that's less known. This is called an FHA 203K loan. So that is a buy and fix on a primary residence. So what's cool about that is you can get in for, as you can see, basically 3% down roughly, plus 100% on the rehab. So that's really strong if you have good income, but maybe not a lot of capital and you want to get into flipping stuff, do an FHA 203K loan. I have not personally done one, but I've seen a lot of very good success stories on it, and it's not rocket science to do. So you see a little FHA there, that means it's one of those standardized types of mortgages. Okay, so we got a hard money loan as well. You can do pretty much the exact same thing, but you have to do typically 10 to 20% down, and then they may or may not finance your rehab. If you're an experienced flipper, you'll get those terms on there, which is 90% plus 100% of rehab, right? But if you aren't experienced and you don't have a lot of deal history, you're going to have a harder time getting that, or they're going to just absolutely jack the interest rate up on you, and then you're going to have a very hard time actually making the payments. So, and then also if you notice the term is 12 months, right? They want their money back quick. So, and there's a 2% fee on that a lot of times. So, and by the way, FHA is probably 1% for the 2 or 3K loan. I didn't include that, but these are all estimates on here. So as you can see, hard money, very expensive. It's hard to do it. Then you have private money. That is whatever you decide to come up with. Most people don't like to lend out their money for longer than 5 years. That's a long time. So I just kind of put that on there. But it's the Wild West. You can do whatever you want with private money. Hard money is typically designed for fix and flip, though. Right? Private money is whatever you need to do. So I would say your typical rate's probably prime plus 3 with like a 1% fee, just in my experience. But these are hard to get. So it's hard to get private money loans. If you find a good private money lender that's a capital partner, watch out for scams, because there's a million scams on Facebook for this type of stuff. If you're ever having to pay for an application, you're doing it wrong. That you're getting scammed. Maybe use some common sense. But private lenders are very nice to have in your back pocket. So treat them right, give them a high fee. So we pay our guys like 12% on stuff that we could totally do it for lower than that, right? We just like to take care of them. Okay, DSCR lender, or a DSCR loan. So we talked about DSCR earlier. So that is a property income based. So that is entirely off the property. They do care a little bit about you, i.e. have you gone to prison? Have you gone bankrupt, right? Stuff like that. And they probably want to know if you have income, just to know if you have income. But it's not always like a hard and fast requirement. So there's that. And then there's a bank statement loan as well. So it is a loan based on alternative documentation. So it's going to be just miscellaneous. They have lots of different types. But generally speaking, they say, okay, how much money comes in and how much money goes out. So sometimes I see very, very wealthy people use this, and sometimes I see very poor people use this. But sometimes your stuff just doesn't look good to a bank. So, for instance, if I was going to go get a loan nowadays, I would have a hard time because a lot of my income wouldn't really count for most lenders, because I'm usually turning over property in less than 2 years by flipping it. And then as a result of that, I'm like losing my income as I earn my income. So I have income. It just doesn't look good to a bank, basically. It's too short. So that's where something like a bank statement loan could be very useful. And then finally, you have a loan assumption. This is not the same as subject to. This is a loan assumption. That is where you actually become the person that owes the money. So your name now becomes on the loan, or your name is now on the loan. You would have owed the same amount of money if it was subject to anyway, but at least now this time the bank knows about it and they approve it, and it's actually in your name. They cannot call it due if it's under a loan assumption. So an FHA or VA loan can be assumed, I believe pretty much all of them. So and that's just typical stuff. All right, I know that was a lot of stuff, but we're making hopefully good headway, and everyone's learning a lot. So now we're going to talk about the better stuff. That was a bunch of boring external stuff that doesn't really matter as much in comparison to the internal, but it is important to know about that. So everybody usually does external funding. I like to do internal funding. I don't want to run it through yet another layer of bureaucracy in order to get my deal approved. So there's straight up cash, right? That is the easiest. Hey, I got this much money, I can close in like 2 days. Like literally you can do it that fast if you want. Just got to get a title company. Seller financing is also really nice. So the seller is the bank. So you get to come up with the terms with the seller. It expedites the process a lot because there's not a bank that has to take a month to get back to you to figure it out. So you can go below prime rate a lot of times on this. So I say prime minus 2%, just because the seller is benefiting because you're buying the property from them. So they are getting what they wanted, which is they are selling the property. So as a result, you can usually get a cheaper interest rate on that. And then your loan to value, it depends, but you can go really high on it potentially. So you can technically get paid back, which would be really weird. I've seen some scenarios with that, but that's usually when the seller's in second position, which is why I put 105%. So you can do your bank for 70%, your seller for like 35%. Now you're at 105%. That is possible. I've done it. Here's a cat in case you're losing attention span. So hang in there. There's a lot of stuff. All right, contract for deed. This is also known as a land contract. That is where the buyer makes the payments, and after all the payments are complete, then they own the property. So there's no foreclosure needed if there's non-payment, because it never technically transferred over. But functionally, it is the same as seller financing. If you think about it, it's like pretty much the exact same thing. You just got to make sure you don't screw up the payments, and you're good. Subject to, the buyer owns a property. The loan does not get paid off at closing, so it just continues to stay in the seller's name, and then the buyer makes payments on that loan. Now, people think this is illegal. This is not illegal. It is against the loan's policy. So if you read the mortgage documents, it says, hey, you got to pay this off at closing. If they don't, then the lender can say, hey, we're calling it due, which basically means you got to owe us the full remaining balance right now. Or they'll accelerate it and make you pay it really, really quick or something like that. But banks usually make their money off of interest, so they want you to continue making the payment. So even if they do find out about it, it's not that big a deal usually, because the bank's typically not going to go and say, hey, full thing is due. But that is how you can buy a property with somebody else's financing with subject to. Master lease purchase option, or master lease with option. So there's the buyer leases the property and has the option, but not the requirement or obligation to buy the property at terms that whatever it is you specify it at, right? And that's basically the same as a rent to own if you think about it. It's just a $0 option price because you're just continuing to rent it until you own it. But those are just like custom contracts, do whatever you want. And then finally, there's something called a TIC, which is tenant in common buyout. So that's where you're buying a part of the property from one of the owners, right? So this is, if there's 3 people that own a property and they're all on the same title, I could say, I'm going to buy out one of the guys completely, say it's 33%. I'll buy out his third share for maybe 25% of the value, right? So now I'm actually like getting a good deal because I'm willing to deal with this like kind of weird interpersonal dynamic between other people. So this is very common with inherited properties because, and actually the worst scenario I've seen of this, there was some land adjacent to one of our properties that we own, and there was 42 people on title. That is insane, right? So if the property value, just for easy numbers, I'll call it 420,000, right? Each one of those people has 1/42 of that, but there's no chance that's actually going to sell really. So I could go around a bunch of them and say, hey, sell me your 1/42 for $3K, even though it's worth $10K. But people would probably take it just because that's like, good luck getting 42 signatures to sell that land. So really crazy. You got to go deal with a bunch of court stuff afterwards, which is why it justifies you getting at a cheap deal. Okay, these are combination strategies. This is like advanced stuff. So you got a hybrid, which is seller finance plus a sub 2. So the lender is going to be in first position. That's on the subject to loan. And then the seller's equity, you're going to finance from them. So you can get into the deal for very, very little down in that situation. And that's basically, AKA the same thing as like a wrap mortgage, right? Then you have a seller carry. So instead of using old debt, you're using new debt. So you get a new bank in first position, and then you put the seller in second position, and the bank does know about it in the situation. So it's called the seller carryback or seller carry. Then you have cross collateralization. So that would be like me saying, I'm buying property A and I'm going to use this loan for property A's purchase, but it's tied against property B, which has $1 million of equity or whatever. This is essentially like a super duper quick refinance, but it's not technically a refinance, right? So I'm extracting, quote unquote, the equity out of B in order to use on A, and then I can get my deal done quicker. So sometimes they'll say, hey, if you want a loan on A, you have to use the collateral on A and B. That is common too if A does not have enough equity. Then there's Morby method, which will absolutely get you in trouble if you don't do it right. So useful to know, not advised to do it. Can get you convicted for mortgage fraud. So I don't recommend this at all. I don't even think it's an ethical strategy, but it's out there. And man, kind of silly of Pace Morby to put his name on there like that. But sure, this is fine. So this is where a bank is in first position, and they think the DSCR ratio is all hunky-dory because they think they're the only lender on it. But in reality, it is fully your intention to get the seller in second position, technically after closing is usually how it's done, without the bank knowing about it. So because you are not informing the bank of your intentions and of this action, it is very unethical at a minimum, if not flat out illegal. So you have to be very careful about that. Don't recommend you do it. If you see people doing these, I would personally say stay the heck away. And they are probably not going to be a very good business partner to rely on because they like doing stuff that can get them in trouble. So it's the equivalent of saying, oh, but you can wholesale in these states without a license, but, you know, nobody's going to check. It's like, well, until you're the one guy that just gets absolutely obliterated. All right, and then I call this Bartlett method, which is basically bank is on first for the land, sellers on first for the homes, and then sellers second on the land. So for a mobile home park, you're buying with the homes and the land, right? So if you're buying park-owned homes, because mobile home parks rent the lots only, or they rent the home plus the lot to tenants, what you can do is you separate the collateralization. So you say, hey, bank, I'm just buying the land. That is with you guys, I'm just buying the land. And then also there's a little bit of a seller position on the land as well. And the bank says, okay, cool. Thanks for letting us know. At least now we're aware of it. And what do you know? The global DSCR ratio is totally fine. You're good. And we say, cool. And look at me. I did not do a Morby method, right? And they're like, cool, thank you. Appreciate it. And then for the homes, you have the seller finance it 100% for all of the homes. So if you do it like that, you can get into the land for very cheap. And you got the homes for 100% financed. You can also, instead of doing a 100% loan to value on the homes, you can actually do like 200% or something crazy like that, where the seller loans you money back. That is okay to do as well. Again, the bank doesn't really care because they actually only have collateral against the actual land. So it's not really, they don't really care what's actually going on with the homes. So you can tell them entirely about this. So we've done this and we've got into deals for a negative down payment. Again, this only really works with mobile home parks specifically, and I buy a lot of mobile home parks, and I have not seen the strategy done anywhere else. So absolutely, I'm going to coin it after my last name. So yes, this is the Bartlett method, but it is a killer strategy to do. If you're using a bank and seller financing, is put your seller in second position, put them on the land, seller in first position on the homes, and then bank in first position on the land. Okay, hopefully everybody's learning. If you haven't learned anything at all, congrats. Whoops. Otherwise, come off mute, say I know everything. Great. Right? Otherwise, I need everyone to go ahead and pay me 6 seconds of feedback, whether it's good or bad. And if you go on the website right there, so /feedback. I put a lot of work into these things to make sure it's done correctly. So I'm teaching you stuff accurately, and I have done a lot of work in the past of actually owning these things. Most people are just doing the YouTube for the hook and the thumbnail, and they're just doing things to get you in the door, and they actually don't know anything what they're talking about. In fact, there's like Discord servers, for instance, out there where the top ranked people are like homeless, living out of their car, and they're slinging out advice. It's crazy, right? I literally have all my stuff on the website. So if you have any questions, then just go to the website there. You can see all my background, everything else, all the deals I've done. So I would like to think I'm walking the walk a little bit. So please give me feedback on everything. I would really, really appreciate it. And make sure to join the email list and community for learning, networking, and deal reviews. We do this stuff weekly. All for free. Tell me if you found this valuable. Okay, 7 Elements of Negotiation. So this is a phenomenal book by HBR, Harvard Business Review. Technically it's by Jeff Weiss, but it's certified by Harvard. And I use this all the time when managing $7 billion worth of stuff for the government. You can get this for free online. Don't tell the copyright police. I don't really know what the issues, I just got this PDF. That's all I know, right? Very, very good book, though. And my top 5 recommended all the time. So if you've read anything else out there, it's good, but it's not going to be as like breakdown fundamentals. Like Chris Voss got some stuff, but this is honestly, in my opinion, better. The 7 elements are interests. What is the true underlying need? Options, which are options that everybody comes up with, right? It's not just one-sided. Standards is an external measurement of what's fair, not internal. Alternatives is what you do if there's no agreement. Commitments are how you get there, essentially, which is what is the detailed action that you're going to end up doing. So if I say I'm going to call you back, I'm going to actually call you back if I want to have good commitments. And then communication is approach and medium of information sent. And then finally, relationship, which is the bedrock for trust. You might be like, I know all this. It's like not like the book is going to go into detail on. If you think you know negotiation, you don't know squat until you've gone all the way through this and really practiced this a lot. So again, I did a lot of negotiating for my job, and I am constantly amazed. I'm like, wow, that's an even better way to do things. So most people think it's just haggling about a number. You're wrong. So we're going to go in a little bit more depth on all these, right? So here's a very good quote. I wonder if anybody knows who ended up saying this. People don't know what they want until you show it to them, right? And it's that the task is to read things that are not yet on the page. So that was by Steve Jobs, because he did not care about giving people what they said they wanted. He cared about giving people what they actually needed, which is very, very different. So want versus need. Just like being a good friend. For instance, if any of my friends, if I think they're doing something wrong, I tell them. I don't care if it hurts the relationship. For me, it is more important to notify them, hey, I think you were doing that incorrectly, than for them to like me. And that's just being a good friend, in my opinion. So you can apply this to lots of areas of your life. So interest, what is the true underlying need? And just because the seller says they want money does not actually mean that's the actual problem to solve. That's the problem that they put it in their head. It's like going to the doctor and telling them before they diagnosed you, I need ibuprofen, right? It's like let them do their job, for gosh sake. Like let them get all the way through. So the actual interest could be something completely different, right? So what are they going to do with the cash after they close? They're going to just throw it in a bank account at 4%, right? It's going to just liquidate away. What do they care about taxes from earning too much money all in 1 year? Do they care about making the most amount of money at the end of the day, right? Is that the interest, or is it that they just don't want to deal with the property? So it is really important to actually pinpoint what is the interest that they actually have, not what they say they have. Why not try why not try seller financing, Mr. Seller? Right? You can get a reasonable cash down payment. Property's actually sold faster, lower taxes by 90% or whatever it comes out to. You get a higher sale price and 6% interest from a loan that's higher, then a bank account's return. There's security of monthly paychecks, secured against the property in first lien position, right? So, like honestly, this slide right here, this is how you do seller financing right there. If they say no, I don't want to do it, right? Try to figure out what is the actual interest, and don't just say, well, how much money do you want, right? I constantly am questioning people's interest, and when they say they need something, I'm like, I don't think that's actually like. First, I want to understand, like, why do you think you need that? And a lot of times the reality is that's not even what they think they need, right? They're the person going to the doctor saying, I need ibuprofen, without actually bothering to get their leg x-rayed or whatever. It's like, just let them do their thing first. So, and that's fine. Everybody's very, privy to this, right? And I'm going to show you the most important slide of the entire boot camp right up next. And this is exactly the same thing. People think they know the solution, so that's what the problems now becomes to solve. So how many people have heard this? How many people have said this? Right? I want to wholesale so I can buy property. Right? Is that the interest to solve? If the interest to solve is buy property, so I made a boot camp. So there's a really easy solution on how to do this, right? It's right there on the screen. Right? Just do it. You don't need the cash, and that's what we're going to be talking about here. So everybody thinks that they need it. It's like, no, you just need to be, the problem to solve is how to educate yourself to do it with your current resources, not how to grow your resources. That is not the same. So here's more stuff on interest, because interest is an incredibly important concept to understand. I would say out of the 7, it's the most important, because everybody gets it wrong. Story time is for fake info, for security reasons. So the quote unquote, this is like from my Air Force job when I was working. So the problem that we had was that for 50 years, we had a bunch of, or we've had for 50 years stuff that was required, right? So it was like loaders in order to load really fragile stuff. You might be able to figure out what that is. So the solution was buy more loaders. So if we buy more loaders, which we're going to call G, then if we buy it in bulk, we'll save 10%. Loader was almost solid metal in order to be safe, because it's really fragile stuff. And the procedure looked something like this. Stuff goes to the crate, forklift takes it from the crate, puts it on the cart puts it on the table, there's an inspection, and then it goes from the table to the hoist to the cart, and then it goes from the cart to the loader, and then from the loader to the plane, and then loads on the plane. Right, that's what all that looked like. That's some fragile stuff. It's not related. So you can look at my LinkedIn if you want to figure it out. So actual solution. Right, so this is what it looked like before. This is the before state. So item A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then H, which was obviously, that's the plane, so it's like super, super expensive. Dollar per unit, very high unit cost, a lot of units worldwide. Again, these are ballpark estimates because I'm not going to give out actual info like that. It'd be just begging to get in trouble. But here's approximately, on the aggregate, just look at the story, and this is generally what we're looking at, right? So program costs 50 mil, 75 mil, and that's like total amount of units, right, worldwide. What is it, 240 mil, 350 mil? All right, there's some pretty big numbers there. Minutes to move in between stations, from A to B to C to all the way to H. So we had a total of 7 moves, 42 minutes, and it cost $835 million, or $835 million, I'm sorry. So that was the beforehand. And by the way, we're dealing with really fragile stuff, like the most fragile stuff. So this is the actual solution, is have a new loader, G, that's what we're trying to solve essentially. So do a new loader design that uses modern software, not from the 1960s, to actually use less material, because it's 80% less material, because now we have AutoCAD. So because there's less material, it's going to cost a lot cheaper. Excuse me. Also, we redesigned Crate A so that it was a safer, vibration-proof, reusable plastic. And then safer is, that is also safer, by the way, for Crate. The required procedure for moving stuff now was just changed. So I would say, hey, we can just move from A to G to H, right? We didn't even know it was possible. Everybody said it wasn't. I said, no, it's regulation against that. It's like, okay, well, let's go check out. How old is that regulation? 60 years? Interesting. Right? If there's less moves, there's less incidences of things getting broken, right? And then faster. So we interviewed the inspection team, who originally was like, nah, there's no way this is going to work. And then we actually found it was possible. And what they were complaining about is that it was going to take twice as long if they inspected it while it was on the loader. So that's the after, right? I'll just give you a second to look at that. So we just cut out almost everything because we actually solved the right problem at the end of the day. So yeah, it takes a little bit longer to move, at step A. Now it goes from 3 to 4 minutes. Inspection, that doubles in time as well. Minutes to move up, step G, that increases by 50%. Right? The unit cost goes from, on A, it goes from 500 to 800. Oh man, that's crazy. Price increase and it takes longer? That doesn't sound good. It's not about that. It's about the big picture, right? Big picture wise, what's your seller doing? Is your seller trying to make money or are they not trying to make money? Are they trying to retire? What's the deal? Try to solve the actual interest. So if you notice, that was like $800 million saved, right? So it worked and we did it in 2 steps and it takes a fraction of the time. So that's just, I use that story all the time when I'm talking about interest because it's like not real estate related and it gets people outside their head and they're like, wow, that is possible. Even though it's a higher unit cost, even though it's all these other things. So this is the equivalent here is like, even though I'm paying 50% more for a $0 down park or project or apartment or whatever, I can make more money at the end of the day because my actual interest is making money. Not, am I buying this particular thing for the lowest price possible? Am I getting into the deal for as good of price and terms as possible? Make sure you're solving the right interest. So here's the other 6 elements a little bit more in depth. So we talked about options. So it is best to have multiple yes case scenarios in case one of them doesn't fail or doesn't proceed forward. You can immediately pivot and you're not having to go do a bunch of squabbling back and forth. So just go ahead and get multiple options lined up. Hey, here's option A, 100K cash offer, 7-day close. Here's option B, 90K cash offer, 90-day close. Which one do you like more? You'd be surprised. Sometimes your seller actually is like, yeah, I'll do option A versus B. Right? So if they want a fast close or vice versa. And I flipped those around, by the way. That's my mistake. I meant to put bad price, which is 90K with the fast, terms or whatever. You get the point. Actually, I didn't mean to flip it around. My mistake. I've been looking at it weird. All right. Standards. External measurement. Key is external. Let reality be the bad guy, not you. I will buy your house for 300K or appraised price, whichever is lower. All right. So if you know daggone well the appraisal price is 250K, probably, then good. You're letting the appraiser be the bad guy, not you be the bad guy, because otherwise you're just arguing forever. If you do show me a lender willing to lend on this property at all, then we don't need to do seller financing. Is that fair? Right now you're putting the onus of proof or onus of work on them, so it's on them to go figure it out. Because if they're like, oh, dude, of course this will clear financing. It's like, great, can you show me a lender? I'll use them. I'll close it right now at this price point. Right? You don't be cocky with your seller like that, but you get my point. Just use it as external. Here's a bunch of comparable properties nearby. The average is 306K, right? External, right? Other people's stuff sold for this much. This is the metric that we're going to use. Therefore, this is where my price offer is coming in from. It's not because I don't like you as a person. It's because external is the standard. Make sure you're always using a good standard. Alternatives as well. If there's nothing else, if I don't buy this property, I'll just go buy another property, right? That's a typical one. If you have a strong alternative, though, it allows you to negotiate very strongly because you are not afraid to walk away at that point in time. If it's a strong alternative. If it's not a very strong alternative, you're kind of stuck. And so that's why I'd recommend make sure you have strong alternatives before you go into situations. Or at least pretend like you have a strong alternative. But if you don't actually have one. But it's just better to have one. All right, commitments. Detailed actions that everybody will do. I will send you this agreement right after the phone call to your email. Are you going to be available to review in the next 15 minutes? If not, I can send it later in the week. Right? It's detailed, and assuming I actually follow through on it, I'm going to strengthen the entire negotiation because I'm actually following through on it. So now they believe that I actually might follow through on closing on the deal. Communication. Approaching medium information is sent. So if you have good news, you should probably send it through email and text because people like to, they check their phones all the time. They won't just be randomly excited. If you call them, that's usually going to be better for bad news. So be very intentional about who's establishing the tone if you're on a voice call, and be very intentional if it's over text that it cannot be misinterpreted. Make sure you're the one establishing tone, by the way. Relationship is the bedrock for trust. So if you are not upfront with them, even on the bad news, it can erode things. So I read that slide in the negative. But so basically be upfront with them, even on the bad news, because it will build trust. Build rapport, then actually try to understand them as a person. That will enable you to understand their interests, what options will work, what commitments you should do, how you should communicate with them, etc. All right, so actually understand them. Okay, so this is the Hormozy Valley formula, which is dream outcome times perceived likelihood of achievement divided by time delay times effort and sacrifice equals value. And that's from Alex Hormozy's insanely awesome book, $100 Million Offers. If you have not read that, you absolutely need to. That is my #1 book recommendation to everybody out of all the books I've read. Number 2 is his follow-on book, which is $100 Million Leads. So he really breaks it down. He has a ton of experience. So here's a good example of using the value formula if you are finding a deal. How close did you come to pro forma? It would be your dream, right? Would it, like, i.e., how is, how much profit are you going to make? Is it a better way to put that, right? Likelihood, are you kind of certain that you're going to make that much money, or are you very, 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 very certain? So if there's something that can increase the certainty, it will increase the value. If there's something that can get paid sooner and you make more money in a shorter time span, that will also increase the value. How long until you get a payout, right? And then effort and sacrifice. Is it easy to deal with? So if it's not easy to deal with, it has less value. So these are the big four. There's not really that many other variables. Like, this is it. This encompasses pretty much everything. All right, getting the deal. Right after this phone call, I'm going to send over my super simple 7-page agreement that I've used to close hundreds of deals. I promise my price will be higher than anyone you've gotten to date, and since I don't like wasting my own time, I can close in 7 days or less. That's pretty compelling because it has all 4 attributes in there. Right after this phone call, time delay decreased. I'll send over my super simple 7-page. That's it. Wow, cool. Effort and sacrifice decreased. They don't have to see how many pages because I just told them that I've used to close hundreds of deals. Higher likelihood of achievement probably because I closed a lot of deals. I promise my price will be higher than anyone else's you've gotten to date. Dream outcome goes up. And since I don't like wasting my own time, i.e. they perceive that I'm a better operator and also that I'm not going to waste their time, time delay goes down, perceived likelihood goes up, I can close in 7 days or less. That sounds like it's pretty easy, so probably less effort and sacrifice, but certainly lower time delay. Right? So that is how you do value formula. And if you do not use a value formula in every single conversation that you ever have you are not optimizing things as best as you can. Do not just randomly ask people stuff, or do not randomly ask a seller for, hey, can you please look at this? It's like, dude, just pitch it in a way that actually makes sense to them. So use the value formula at every single step of the way, and you will maximize your opportunities that present themselves. Funding a deal, exact same thing. You're 100% passive, no effort sacrifice, and also no time, and get paid back 100% before I get paid a dime, right? So now they assume that you want to get paid because it says, I don't like work for months with no payout, but luckily I never had to. So perceived likelihood goes up. Also the dream outcome, which is they don't have to do anything, which is also low time delay, right? So this is, again, integral to everything. Make sure you're using value formula in everything that you ever do. And if you don't, I'm not perfect at this either, but there's no excuse if I'm not where I want in life because I'm not using this, right? So make sure you're using it all the way. Okay, concept review and quiz. So what is the DSCR formula and what does it stand for? That is going to be DSCR equals NOI divided by debt payments. And that's just the principal and interest from the debt payment because the taxes and insurance are factored into the NOI as an expense. What is the external funding types? You have syndication, FHA, conventional VA, FHA 203K, hard money loan, private money loan, DSCR, bank loan, loan assumption. There's probably more in here. I just didn't really bother to include just because we start getting really nuanced. But main point is you're going external to the deal to get money and bring it in. What are the internal funding types? These are the cool ones. The cool ones are cash, which is obviously you got to have cash in order to do that. Seller finance, contract for deed, subject to, master lease to purchase option, tenant common buyout. What's the difference between seller financing and contract for deed? It's going to be that seller financing, the buyer owns the property. Contract for deed, the seller technically owns the property, but they can't prevent the buyer from completing payments and then owning the property. So it's kind of sort of the same thing, but it's just technically who owns the property is who has the deed essentially, right? What are some advanced funding strategies? There's going to be hybrid, seller carry, cross-collateralization, Morby method, which I don't recommend ever, and then Bartlett method, which you can only do in mobile home parks. Then what is interest? That is the true underlying need. That is the 3-word definition that you need to burn into your brain. Don't just take people's statements for exactly fact. If they say that they need something, make sure it's actually what they need. If you want to buy property, what do you need to do? Just do it. Literally, that's your interest to solve. Just do it. Or 7 elements of negotiation. You got interest, option standards, alternatives, commitments, communication, and relationship. Make sure you're looking at all 7 of these every single time you do a negotiation. I literally write them out on paper if it's a high-level negotiation, and I have a little box that I'm filling all of these in so that I identify them very, very clearly. What is the Hormozy value formula? That's going to be value equals dream outcome times likelihood of achievement divided by time delay times pain or sacrifice. And then an example of the Hormozy value formula would just be whatever you can come up with, but that's basically, you got to make sure you include all 4. Okay, you can go online to this URL. You can also scan the QR code as well, and that will give you today's video presentation is going to be on there, and also the practice problems. I have practice problems that I fully expect everybody to want to go do. Please give me feedback on them if they are beneficial or not beneficial, but I think it's a very good exercise to go through. So it has like a hints, and then also has it has both hints and then also solutions in there. And I'll just continue to iterate and improve these things over time with user feedback. And then also we have Do Our Review in our Discord server, which is a community server where you can join in and jump into voice chat, and you can present your deal in order to get other people's feedback on it. So that is at 7 p.m. Wednesdays currently, and you can go to the website for everything. So you can also get grading for all these things as well. I am more than happy to do all the grading for it. So at this point in time, I'm going to pause for questions. If you're watching on YouTube, please throw in the comment section, and I will be sure to answer anything and everything you have to that I did not cover, because this is good feedback for me. So of course I want to answer your questions. So please go ahead and ask them. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and stop recording, and make sure to tune in for day 3 as well.